This is a Main Hustle Media podcast. Main Hustle Media podcasts are recorded on the ancestral lands of the Chumash, Tongva, Karankawa, and Hohokam people, and I wish to pay my respects to the people of those nations, both past and present. Hey y'all, welcome to the Queer and Far podcast, a travel podcast from a couple of queer femmes. We are providing tips and resources to travel safely while Black and brown, while queer, while disabled, or any marginalized group and intersection between. I am one of your co-hosts, your Sir Auntie, Sharmane Fury, aka dABlasianBlerd, the busiest mixed race, bigendered, bisexual, polyamorous, atheist, comic book nerd, cat mom, and two-time Asian American Podcasters Association's Golden Crane Award winning podcaster in this podcasting game. This is how you do a 30-second intro for every episode. And you are the
still
other
Shae.
Co-host, still Shae Nahnigans.
Still Shae and still a noob, but I'm here and I'm learning and I'm queer.
Get used to it.
Get used to it, okay? And every single time you say tips, I hear tit.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. I think it's the queer side of me.
Sure.
Sure.
How do you feel? Okay, so this is episode 2.
Yep.
Episode 1 is out.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel?
I feel good.
Yeah.
I was nervous.
You were.
I told you I was nervous, but I liked it. You did a very good job. I mean, I did a very good job too.
You did fine. I don't know why you're tripping so much.
Well, what I mean is, like, when there was like edits, and all of a sudden there was like banana splits, I was like, oh my god, edits! I've always wanted to have edits.
I probably won't do that all the time, but there were just moments because I didn't do it all the way throughout the episode, but there was just moments when I felt like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and
I don't know.
Do it. You know,
the people out there in the internet lands, they're going to get used to certain things.
It's fine. If they get used to it, I can do it. But yeah, I realize the level of nerves are disproportionate between us because I've been doing this for 4 years and you were so nervous about seeing yourself. I'm like, literally the most mediocre of people can be out there on these podcasts and streets. So like,
that is true. That is true. Like there's those pro-fit ones and those angry men podcasts about why women are the problem. Right.
So no, I think you did a good job. And I'm glad that you got to a place where you finally were like, you're just having a conversation. Cause that's what we're doing. We're just having conversation.
That's all. We're just talking. Yeah. And today is going to be a good one because
we really wanted to get into sort of, since we are starting our journey, I am going to be traveling soon and we're going to have some travel episodes coming up, but because you and I are in this sort of together-ish expat journey, I wanted to start that off a little bit and talk about that, and you did too. You have a whole list of shit that you want to get into today. So what we're talking about today is when is someday, because we all have the someday we're going to do fill in the blank.
Yep.
But more specifically, when is someday now?
Yep.
And the way you get to when is someday now, the way you get to figure out when now is why you're doing this. And so we've been kind of talking over the last week and change about we've been talking about for years why we want to do this, but more specifically to the show, we've been talking about over the last week or so, like why is it now, and what is getting us to that
place
right now.
We're getting ready to leave the only home that we've ever known. I mean, I know we've traveled and I've traveled and we've moved around a little bit, but it's a big deal when you start talking about, I'm going to start spending some significant time away from friends, family, your birthplace, so on.
Yeah, it's funny because I haven't lived abroad yet, but I have left whatever home is at a given time, both as a military kid and as an adult. I've moved around like every 5 years and stuff like that. So I'm used to like leaving a collective group of people behind and kind of what happens after that. Like every place I leave, there's like one or two friends that kind of stay your friends. And then there's like the next tier is like 2 or 3 people that are like Facebook friends that still tell you that they love you, but like you've literally never seen each other or talked on the phone.
For forever.
And then you got like the ones that are just like, hey, I remember you. We're still Facebook friends, but like, happy birthday, you know?
True.
So I'm used to that.
Right. But I think what I guess a little bit was when we had I don't want to say we had a conversation. It was so funny because Sharmane was driving responsibly, and she was sending me not video, but voice little messages.
Voice memos, yeah.
Talking about how her partner, Tristan, was talking about some of his concerns or voicing like, why don't we just pick a spot that's going to be the forever place?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the one. And it's like, how can we pick a forever spot?
If we've never been, like
in this spot. But I think one of the main hurdles I think that makes everybody apprehensive is, in Mexico, they speak, I mean, I'm sure they speak English, but they speak
predominantly
Spanish and a different version of Spanish than they do in Spain. And then there's different foods. How do we get around getting furniture, all this stuff? We're leaving things that you don't even think about. Like we just pop off to the store. We just go down to get our medication, that type of stuff. The little things that you take for granted every day.
Yeah. There's fish out of the water moving from California to Texas or Texas to Massachusetts, for me as an adult, or you moving to where you're living now. I don't know if you've said, so I'm not putting it out there. But
I live on the sun. I live on the sun.
That's kind of true.
It's otherwise known as Arizona.
So like for me, like there are some creature comforts that disappear, like things that are very Northern California versus Southern California things that you just have in shops or whatever. Right. Or like once you move to like if you move to New England, that like if you don't have a Dunks or a Honeydew on every corner, you get used to that, and then you move to a place that doesn't have that, and you're like, what do I do now? Because I don't drink coffee, I drink tea, and stuff like that, all kinds of stuff. Like there's this weird little creature comforts, but that's a different thing than when you go to a place and you literally have to ask the question, am I going to be able to get CarMax in Mexico? Right. Because for me, this is a crazy thing I need, and then we've been watching like expat videos and stuff like that of people that we follow, and they've been dropping things that you're just like, oh shit, we didn't think about that. Put that on the list. And some of that is like vitamins. You can't bring them to Mexico. But you can get vitamins in Mexico.
You can only bring a certain amount of your pet's food.
And your pet's food. Yeah. Like only a day's worth of your pet's food. So you have to know that you can get, and especially that we both have animals that have prescription food. So like there's like all these little things that like we haven't even thought about, some of the things that are going to happen. We do have things that we have thought about, but we don't even know. Like even right before we press record, we were talking about our gaming chairs and whether or not we would be carting those with us, because like I didn't buy this casually. Like this is a Spider-Man chair. This is a fucking Marvel chair. That's why I bought this chair. Am I going to bring it to Mexico? Probably not. But do I put it in storage? Like all kinds of stuff. So let's get into that. So we've been talking about the why, and then how our whys get us to now.
Yeah. So this has been slow growing for me for the longest time. I've been not feeling satisfied by American culture for a very long time now. I'm sure maybe in some ways, like for you, you're like, lady, I was born.
I mean, I'm half a foreigner anyway. Like both sides of my family have a foreign relative, grandparent. So in my case, I'm half who I was raised by. So I'm like, I have a non-American mindset, even though I was born here and raised here. Right. I'm an American foreigner.
You've known me for over 20 years. So you've known me that I've always been very outspoken, extremely loud, confrontational.
You got us out of a ticket with the cop, which was in a really impressive way. So yeah.
One day, internet, we will tell you that story. One day you will know that story and all that glory. But I think for me, on a personal note, I feel a sense of responsibility of, if I don't like something, I need to work very hard to change it. And I've been doing that for over 20 years. And I'm not going to lie, I'm exhausted. There's no other way of putting it. And I think I want a change of perspective. And Americans, especially white Americans, only sees things. I mean, I'm saying this to you like I'm talking to a fish about how water is wet. I understand that, but this is for the internet.
Let me get ready to grab my Komoyo beads. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready.
Don't say. The nationalism, particularly Christian nationalism in this country, has been exponentially going up. Even though that we've gotten rights, as I use those in those air quotes, and how people have become more woke and liberal, whatever the heck effing means. Yet here we are.
Yeah.
With Roe versus Wade being overturned, which if anybody is shocked by that, you weren't paying attention.
I mean, I have felt that probably longer than some of the people that we've had separate conversations about or two. Like, even my husband was shocked that got elected, and I was saying from the jump, I'm like, he's getting elected, and after the whole like grab him by the pussy thing, he was like, there's no way, and I'm like, that's the thing that guarantees he's getting elected. You know, like I'm a brown femme. I'm a brown queer femme. I am experiencing this kind of stuff more often than a white person is, and therefore, like, the shock that some people experience. I mean, it's not like there aren't brown people that were shocked. There were, but you know, there's, at the end of the day, some people believe in like a sense of justice that they think things will just not go the worst way they can go. And for me, I'm fully always expecting it, and
you can't afford to have hope.
I can't, honestly, I can't. And that's actually one of my biggest beefs with the first campaign for Obama was the hope thing. And I was like, I hated it because, and this is probably a way bigger conversation that we will not get into on this episode, but I hated it because as a fellow mixed Black person, I didn't want the mixed one to be telling people to have false hope in America. To be honest. But, you know, whatever it is what it is. He also grew up white, in white affluence, and in other countries and stuff like that too. So he doesn't have the same experience of being a Black American that I have, and you know, whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I can't afford hope, and so I'm not surprised by this. I prepared in the way that I could prepare, you know, like when got elected, and I can't even actually believe I said his name. I usually don't say his name. I'll bleep it. I'll bleep it because it's a bad word.
It is a dirty word.
It's a dirty word. It's the only word I'll bleep. I won't bleep fuck, motherfucker, shit, cunt, nothing. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bleep 45. You know, like when he got elected, I instantly changed out my IUD because I was like, I need something to get me through the first term, just in case, you know, same type of thing, like anticipating Roe versus Wade happening. And, you know, me being 44, I still have time. I'm not in menopause yet. I don't know when this will end. So like, and I live in Texas, and they won't tie my tubes because my husband might want babies one day.
I've asked 3 times in my life. I'm now 42, and I've been turned down 3 times.
Yeah. No, I was turned down specifically because my husband might want children. Yeah.
But, and I'm like, with who? Because my husband's had testicular cancer and no longer has testicles.
Oh my goodness.
So who am I having these children with?
Like the way in which they do not like,
they don't even, I know.
They don't even bother care. I'm like,
but for me, I don't think I was, surprised is not the right word. I think what has been happening constantly for the last 10 years is I'm being constantly disappointed.
And that's what's new to you.
Right. Well, because I'm used to being disappointed by strangers. Right. I am now being more and more and more very disappointed in family and friends. So
and that's been hard on you.
Right. And I don't, should I segue? Like, okay, internets.
I like that you keep calling
internets.
Like, you know, I'm militantly mixed. I call everybody my cousins and stuff like that. Here, you're just like internets.
Those are internets. Listen to me. So, my entire life has been confronting family member and friends to provide education, sometimes crack some jokes, to be the calm person. So I was never calm all the way, but a lot of times but to them, I was being extra. But for me, I'm like, no, you don't understand. I am being calm. I'm coming here with facts. I'm coming here to educate. I'm coming here to hear your side and all this other stuff. And those family members who went the wayward, who went for frumpy dump, they're past gone. The ones I'm the most disappointed in are the ones that continue to say, well, why are you grouping me in with them? I don't believe that way. And it's because I keep saying to you, you keep making safe places for these people to congregate.
Yeah. Thanksgiving,
Christmas. You ask me to mute myself because you want to have a quiet, calm family holiday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I keep saying Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. I can't tell you how many family members told me that was never going to happen.
It wasn't codified. So
not in the 50 years that I let my white, matriarchal, family members had in charge of that. No. And so that is what I'm tired of. It's friends and family that I was like, look, things are getting bad. I need you to speak up. And so to be clear, I'm not running because I don't want that. Like, I still want to be here to do my advocacy work, to vote, to give
maintain
money,
a residence, and stuff like that,
whatever. Yeah. But I need some different perspective. I need some time off. I need to breathe because I've been running and running and running for, I don't know how long now, 7 years straight with no time off.
I mean, I think that's why it's weird because I feel like this slight defensiveness to be like, but I was thinking about this already,
right.
Or just like reminding people, like, you've heard me talk about this for years that I've been wanting to do this. It's just that I think this is the someday part, right? Where like, you're like, someday I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And most of those things you don't actually think you're going to do, but you're not like killing yourself over it either. You're just like, it's just the fantasy. It's whatever. This is how we talk.
Right.
But there's so many things that I needed to not be just the fantasy. Yes. As a kid that grew up with, international family on both sides of my family, as a kid that grew up on welfare, that didn't have possessions, that sometimes had to bolt in the night and leave things behind. I wanted to make sure that at some point in my adulthood, I had the experience of living in other places to expose myself to something different as well, from my experience here, but also like to give myself a chance to enjoy things. I think there's so much about our fantasy life that we don't try to do because we think it's either unattainable or that we don't deserve the opportunity to try it. And the last few years have been really since 2015, things have been particularly difficult in my personal life, and little things have happened and big things have happened, all to kind of cut me down. And I have managed to either stay above water or stay afloat to a degree while dealing with like massive depression and everything like that. And at the end of the thing, every time I'm trying to deal with this kind of stuff, all I keep doing to get myself sort of out of these like gloomy places is fantasizing a lifestyle where I'm living close to both a beach and a jungle or a forest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why specifically that's the thing. Like, I want the rest of my life to be like me on a hammock on a beach with like the forest in the background. And that's been this thing that I sort of fantasize my way out of those darker moments. And why it takes a minute to be like, well, why is that only a fantasy thing to get myself out of depression, to put me back into a situation that's going to put me back into the depression, and boom, 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 boom. And I'm bouncing back and forth. And I have, whether by accident or purpose, I've been making my life a little bit more mobile so that I don't have to necessarily have roots anywhere. And I literally have never had roots. I'm a military kid. I grew up moving around like crazy. And then as an adult, my partner and I have moved all over the country for a job or on a whim or whatever. We're just ready to go.
Right.
And I don't see why this has to be any different, especially once you start doing research and finding out that there are ways that you can attain it financially and things like that too. And I will do my best to not necessarily infiltrate a location or definitely not gentrify a location, but just like try to immerse myself in participating in the culture and in the way in which I can have access to it without like,
well, capitalism's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
But part of this, it's the system of which we live in.
Yeah.
And to make changes within that system where we can still exist and live without taking advantage of another group of people. That's what we're going to be trying to attain to do the best we can. And that is just be more conscious of it.
Conscious of it. There's going to be times we're probably going to both deal with a different version of like class anxiety and race anxiety in different ways, because I'm also moving to a place where the race of other people aren't my race or ethnicity. Right. I think a lot of that stuff will be at play, but I keep coming back to, why do I always have to struggle? Why can't I be a person that gets to do the things that these mediocre ass expats do when they leave their country and stuff like that? Like, why can't I do it with intention, with thoughtfulness, with empathy, while also actually trying to enjoy myself and just fight in a different way now than I have been having to fight every single day of my fucking 44-year life, you know? I think that's what it comes down to, and then just discovering that it's even realistic. And so I think over the last couple of years, following some of those Black and brown expats that have content creation or different content channels, I'm able to kind of see the realistic aspect of it that I thought was just completely unattainable before. And of course, you've just done so much research that you've shared with me over the years too, that it gets closer and closer to feeling realistic, to a degree that I one day basically just had to look at my partner and be like, I'm going to go do this. Are you going to do this with me? Because I'm going to do it. At some point, I'm just going to fucking do it. Like, I just know I'm going to fucking do it. And I think that's really the difference of the last couple of months for me, was that I realized, you know what it was? I don't know if you remember specifically, but you and I had almost a carbon copy conversation like a couple months ago from a conversation we had a couple years ago when I was still living in LA. And I can tell you that a couple years ago, it was still fantasy mode. Like, even though you had so much information and you had broken it down about what was feasible and all this kind of stuff, it was still like, no, I don't think so. You know, like, I don't think that's really possible, or that I would even want to. I also had to do some decolonization work about like how much westernization and like,
why you were only looking at specific
at certain spaces and things like that. Like, we had that conversation, and then we had a carbon copy of it like a couple months ago. And I remember the moment at which I was like, you know what, actually that makes sense. Like, why wouldn't it be that way? You know, why couldn't we try, you know, Mexico of all, you know, in particular, or something like that, versus some of the other places that we were talking about? And everything changed for me in that moment. I was, and of course, transitioning out of my comic book shop and dealing with the emotions around doing that transition and stuff like that. I was just like, you know what? I packed my whole life up and went to Houston, hoping that my comic book shop would take off and be really successful. And I hope that it still is without me. But when I decided to separate from there, I didn't have a plan outside of, I'm just going to be a podcaster now. And now, like, it's a few months later and it's like, I'm going to be a podcaster now, but I'm actually going to do shit in my day-to-day life that I can use in my podcasting and enjoy. And so, yeah, I think that's how my whys became now. But there's still so much stuff that we don't like the other day when I texted you, because I watched that video and the person talked about dampness, or no, I was in a group chat of something and I saw people talk about dampness, and I was like, oh, put this on the list of something that we hadn't talked about before. So yeah. Do you want to talk about some of that stuff that like,
Yeah. Like some of the things that of things that we didn't think about, or things that now I'm considering, like, one right now, the reason why Mexico has always been high on my list is that very easily I can take my pets and go across the border.
Yeah. And that is something you've said the whole time. Yeah.
Because I have pit bulls. Those are harder to move. Also, I could just get in a car and go across the border. That's a lot easier than spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 getting them in a very stressful environment. I still think most likely now, if we're going to Merida, is one of our top picks, or even Mexico City, it would be easier to fly with my animals as opposed to spending 3 days in a car.
Right. And you're also talking about a 2 to 3 hour flight versus a 9-hour flight across the pond.
Right. Yeah. To something else. So, and then, but some of the things I found interesting was with the, colonization of the information that is provided when you Google something from your IP address from America it's very anti-brown.
Yeah, it is.
And it's so, sometimes it's not subtle. That's true. But a lot of times it's just it's wording like, they talk about crime. And then, but if you start looking at certain things in the way they word it and what they're talking like.
And you also have to do like we compare it to a population in the States versus all of the states. You know what I'm saying? Like they do some really crazy math.
Right. And when I actually went and looked at how world organizations outside of the United States, which was very hard to find, that was looking at the safest cities in the world to live. And they wasn't looking at like everywhere, but it was like looking at the, certain particular countries. The topics, yeah. Right. Merida is the second safest city out of all of it.
Yeah.
Outside of every single city in America.
Yeah.
Like we're not even on that list.
And so that's the difference of actually watching expat content from white people versus expat content from brown people is that I've never followed white expats. I've always followed black women particularly, but there's a few black men as well. And then a few non-black brown folks, whatever, right. different categories, but not as many. And they've always put things in perspective that make sense to someone like me who grew up in Long Beach, who grew up in predominantly black neighborhoods and things like that. Like they have always said those things. They're like, yeah, there is crime. Compared to where we're from, it's nothing. Like, and we're talking about specifically the neighbor. Well, so for those of us that grew up like hood kids, specifically for the neighborhoods we grew up with, the places that we're looking at don't even compare crime wise. And then of course, like someone put it very specifically, like there's only 3 states in all of the 31 states of Mexico where the police force is paid a living wage.
Yes.
A commiserate with like their lifestyle and what they need and things like that too. So I say that because we call things living wages here that don't actually like match up. So that's why I wanted to say those words. Where they're paid by the government at a level that is comfortable for them to actually live. And so they're not motivated by the poverty aspect or like racking up numbers and stuff like that. So the way that the police enforce crime or and things like that. Enforce crime. I didn't mean to say it that way, but you know what I'm saying? The way the police is different than the way it happens here. And a lot of and so like I'm getting a chance to see that a lot more often probably. And I know that you have curated your For Yous and stuff like that to see more black and brown people over the last few years. But I don't know what you were seeing before. Like I don't know if you were getting access to that kind of stuff.
Not as much because I wasn't always going and consciously trying to go out and find stuff. And also it's easier now.
It is easier now.
But they don't give platforms to people of color or disabled or other more than not. And let's be real here. To be able to travel is a privilege that a lot of people cannot afford to do. Yeah. So primarily the people that I was seeing was people who look like me, but I was taking it from another perspective. I don't know how healthy this is, and I won't be dropping names because I don't need that type of shit in my life. But is watching how people who look like me, what we do. And how problematic we are. For example, the way we move in, the way we go in there with our money, and we expect if we just throw money at it, we can get whatever the fuck we want. The other thing that it was really offensive to me is many of the people who do, podcasts or do these travel blogs and stuff like that never ever ever talk about the politics or the economic issues that affect the country. They just take what I feel is advantage of the situation. It's like you're living in a place and taking advantage of a group of people or getting, not so much taking advantage. What do I want to say? Having the privilege and giving a better life from these people who are sharing their homes with you Ecuador and in Mexico, or even, other places, and you don't want to speak about what directly affects them.
Yeah. Because you've gotten away from the thing that directly affects you.
Because you keep saying, well, that's their problem, not mine.
You're in their space.
You're in their space, and you're funding a government or a group of people that helps keep these people in this plight. So yes, it has everything to do with you.
Yeah.
And if you're not conscious about that, that's sus. The other thing that I really didn't like is whenever I see them, they go and they build their companies, like they'll build spaces and they'll invite other expats to come down and work with them. Like, don't worry, we'll give you a job and we'll show you how to do real estate down here. I'm like, ew.
Yeah. I always wondered that, because like when I would watch those like Home Hunter or House Hunters International shows, and they were always like American English speaking realtors and things like that. And I always had questions, like it always stuck in the back of my mind of like, what's happening there? Why is that a thing that's available?
Right.
It's also a thing of like people not even knowing some of the basic things about the countries that they're going to. Like, do you know the name of the presidents or prime minister? Do you know if they have a president or a prime minister? Or do you know, like I remember seeing something on, I think it was TikTok, and in the comments where somebody said, or somebody said something like it was a tagged question about like, what state do you live in? And they were like, I'm in Mexico, whatever. And it's just this thing of just like, they don't even think that like, we're the only people on this planet that thought of states, versus provinces, territory, whatever the fucking thing is called, right?
Come on, you're African American. Your country of origin is African. You're like, that's a continent.
It's a continent. Yeah. It's like, come on. So I think it's stuff like that. Like, so this actually just happened to me last night, because
oh Lord,
I'm specifically like, my entire For You page on TikTok or even Instagram, or the way I search out travel and expat stories, I'm always looking for Black women first. And then I start to dig into like Black queer, and that like I kind of go down the list of all the things that I am in the sort of hierarchical way that I identify. And so like when I'm scrolling through my curated pages, that's what I'm seeing the most of. But then I ended up seeing something just kind of quickly and subtly about freshwater pools, cenotes in Mexico. And so for me, like when I talk about nature or wanting to go back to nature, for me, it's ocean or lake. It's water based. Like, water is the thing that I want to be near. And so when I saw that there was all these freshwater pools all over the place, I was like, oh, I want to check this out. So I go down this rabbit holes of cenotes. Like, I want to see all the cenotes close by, because that's one of the thing I do right away. And if I would see so I ended up searching the word. That was my problem, as I searched the word. When searching the word, I saw predominantly white, Instagram model level people that were doing these things. And the way they described the quaintness of Mexico, of the city or the towns or cities that they were in, or the way they described like anything in Mexico was like isn't it so cute? As if they're looking at a zoo or a ant farm of something like that, of like, I am the dominant species looking upon
another.
Yeah, and you're othering. Physically in their place, but you're othering them.
But we're othering them in their place.
And then I switch over to like a Black traveler who was doing that, and like, you need to learn about this cenote because, and then the way they describe it is the stuff that I want to know about the place. Like, it's literally like, this place has a water temperature of XYZ. Like, the water is so crystal clear. It's known for this, why, It's in a cave function. Like, all this stuff that is like the reason why I even wanted to learn about the stuff. And then on top of it, some kind of mention of just like, at no point was I harassed, like no point were people asking me why I was there. Nobody asked me why I knew how to swim. Like, this kind of shit that happens to us here in the States wasn't happening on those videos. So the contrast, just within seconds of scrolling on TikTok, the contrast of getting a white expat experiencing Mexico versus a Black expat, like, instant cringiness to just be like, oh, I cannot stand how they do this all the time wherever they go. And I know I'm saying they, and I know that you're one of them, but you're also different. No, like it's just that lack of thoughtfulness. Yeah, like it's that lack of thoughtfulness that just is an automatic assumption. And I'm not saying that there aren't some American aspects of me that I will absolutely discover when I get someplace. I know that there's some things are very American about me that I'm just not as aware of until I'm not in America. I know that to be the case.
I did not, like, for example, when I went to Italy, the thing that was the hardest for me was whenever you're planning to go somewhere, you will see the schedule of the train or the bus going there, but you don't get to see the schedule of the train or the bus coming back until you're there.
Oh, funny.
So if you get there and you look at the board, you go, the train going back to where your hotel is tomorrow. So you're here tonight
till tomorrow.
Till tomorrow. That was like, and I'm like, that was, and then when I, the Italians are looking at you going, what's your problem? I'm like, I want to go back to my hotel room. That was a very, that was my American abroad moment of tantrum.
See, that would, while it would also make me uncomfortable, I'm not saying that it wouldn't. And also money-wise, I'd be concerned for myself and things like that. The way it would impact me would be so much different than the way it would impact you, because like white people existing in discomfort is not something y'all practice.
Nope.
We're like literally like brown people don't have that choice. And so
absolutely,
like, so I'm just like, okay, so we're either going to be staying in the train station
or
we're going to try to find a cheap place, like
solution oriented,
solution oriented, like kicks in right away. Whereas like white people will kind of linger in their discomfort, completely unsure what the next step is. That's how you get so many fucking videos of white women harassing people on planes and then being ejected from the plane and being like, no, I have to go to work tomorrow. Well, you should have thought of that before you started being a dick. Like things like that.
I wasn't being a dick. I was in my
fields.
I'm
not saying that you were, but I'm saying
no, that's what I mean. Is like, that's what we do, which is you made me uncomfortable.
And so, you're perceiving my behavior.
Right. Everybody should be comforting me because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. Whereas like we just have to live within, as brown people, we like just have to live within our discomfort. And we're just, and this is not stereotyping. This is like, we're just legitimately more resourceful when shit goes wrong because we experience shit going wrong outside of our control so much more often, I think, than y'all do. So yeah, that's interesting. That's funny. But again, it's also one of those things that like your mindset when you travel.
Yes.
As an American, but more specifically as a white American, your expectation of what you have access to, you're not even prepared for the shift. Whereas like I am prepared for a shift. I just don't know what that is going to be until I'm in a place. And so I'm already heightened because I'm ready to find out what the thing is that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Well, not from your perspective, but I'm getting an inkling. But from my perspective, no. And it was very uncomfortable. And there was times when I was like, got mad at my family members for being there, like, just go with the flow. And I'm like, you guys are white dudes. Like, I'm
one of my favorite kinks is watching white people call white people white.
Okay. All right. Am I turning you on?
I fucking love it. I don't know why, but it's so funny to like see a white person call a white person white and watch that person freak out. I fucking love it.
You enjoy a little white on white crime.
I do. I am here for white on white crime on the internet.
Honestly, it's pretty amusing. So, but that's from the perspective of, I've been curating. I predominantly want to hear the Black perspective the most, but I've been spending so much time now going, okay, make sure like indigenous, Asian, this, and because I have a lot from coming from the colonizer background, I have a lot more to wade through.
I mean, I do that as well, but again, it's just different in terms of the like mental access to things. I kind of start with my own hierarchies and then I work into the other categories. And now because I know that we've kind of zeroed in on Mexico as being the place that just makes the most sense for the first jump, because we are planning on probably experiencing a number of different places. Now I'm doing Latin. Now I'm doing Mexico specifically, so that I can kind of get myself acquainted with that.
Right. Same. And also like the perspective of being told, like, I remember people telling me, oh, you can't go there, it's not safe for LGBTQ. That's not true. You know,
I guess finding out sources before finding sources. Yeah.
Right. And because I'm like, I want to hear that. I want to see what laws. And I'm like, no, they're on slightly behind. Well, at the time of making the Pew, whatever, that, they were slightly below America. I don't know how now, with everything that has happened so quickly in the last 2 years, how America is going to fare. I think America severely has dropped.
Yeah.
In safety wise for the LGBTQ in particular.
And also we'll do an episode about this as well. We both have, well, I'll say in my case, a primary relationship, but because I'm poly, but like we both have relationships where we can hide in straight privilege for safety. There's some discomfort for that for me, for sure, that I've talked about on some of my other shows that we can get into, because I don't specifically know that for you. Like, I mean, I've been quoted as saying I've been gay on the internet, meaning like I've been publicly out. I'm not doing gay shit on the internet, but I am publicly out as a queer person. And so I'm too Googleable as queer. So I know that I can't hide from it when I go somewhere else if I'm searchable. But I know that if I'm physically walking down the street next to my partner, that's, I have that like straight privilege, a straight assumed privilege to hide in for safety if I need to. I feel uncomfortable about it, but it is also a thing.
It's our reality
eventually,
and we're going to go about. But and so I don't normally, besides outside of you and maybe a handful of other people, I've really literally have stopped talking about me and my partner leaving and doing traveling outside of the United States to live, primarily because one of the big things that keeps coming up is them constantly telling me that other places are, more dangerous, or more this or more that, more this. And I was like, okay,
I don't want to hear it.
Number one, let's just pretend for a second that I believe you.
Yeah.
That you're correct, that your assumptions are correct. But the thing is, that's not like it everywhere, or we be hearing about it. When I did a minimal amount of research, that's not true. But the bigger one is this. They're like, well, the other one that they argue now is with, they have problems with, crimes against LGBTQ or, abortion rights. And I'm like, so do we. But the only difference is I pay 12 times higher to be discriminated and be treated like shit in my own home.
Yeah.
With no support of family and friends, because you're just waiting for the fucking pendulum to swing back or whatever the fuck they keep telling me.
It'll even itself out.
It'll just even I just stay here and be miserable with you. And I think that's where this is coming from. The idea that, well, from my perspective, I'm finding with my loved ones is the idea that I don't want to be here in the muck anymore with you. If you're not going to dig.
Yeah. That, that is why it's so much easier, I think, for me now to separate from, I'm Japanese. I can cut a motherfucker out real quick. It's part of my training. Like I can just like stop being related to somebody in some way, shape, or form.
You don't exist any longer.
I'm not saying that I don't have a mourning period. It's just that my mourning period is actually really small in comparison to other people that I experience grieving lost
relationships,
loved ones when they're still alive.
Right.
So for me, it's like, I know that it is easier for me. I know that I come from a culture that allows for that a little bit easier than others. But it's that thing of just hunker down, like that there's someone who loves me, but is willing to tell me to hunker down through the shit until a fantasy future that we can't even guarantee. And if you're not willing to do the work and you claim you love me, why are you expecting other people out there to do the work to make the change that you aren't helping make? No. I'm like, I had a friend tell me that the reason why they still, ate at Chick-fil-A is because the chicken is good, which is a complete lie. That is the worst fucking chicken. Well, there's worse chicken, but it's not very good chicken. I don't know why people like it. But they specifically said to my face, well, I'm not gay, so I don't have to deal with it the way you do. And I was like, but you are Black. And you should also be able to, empathy doesn't have to be, I'm not from your category. Empathy is, I'm a human person that doesn't want XYZ to happen. So I can relate and fight against that kind of thing. It doesn't mean you have to be gay to not want to eat at Chick-fil-A. You hurt people in America, you hurt people through money. You make change, you affect change through hurting their money. Chick-fil-A, not eating at Chick-fil-A would be one of those ways in which you can help influence people from not having those problematic positions, in the same way that there are companies that support anti-Black legislation and stuff like that. Probably don't go supporting those people. And if you don't think Chick-fil-A is one of those people, then you're ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think it was all this kind of like, when I see people say stuff like that, like, it's so much easier for me to be like, you know what, you're not safe anymore. And back out. And then as I back away from some of these not safe relationships, some people don't even check in. And then you're like, oh, they didn't really care anyway. Because like, if I haven't spoken to you in like 4 months and you don't realize it, then we're fine. We didn't need to be in a relationship anyway, whatever that relationship is, friendship or otherwise. But for the ones that check in on you and be like, hey, I haven't heard from you in 4 months. And you're like, yeah, I haven't heard from you either. And then the answer is, so what's going on? And it's like, have you changed your position on eating a Chick-fil-A yet? You know, and I'm just using that as a small example. Not that has happened in real, or like, not that the check-in part hasn't happened in real life. Let me be clear. But like, I can just drop out a lot quicker now, because at this point I think I've hit an age where I'm no longer going to put in the effort to work and fix a person that is telling me who they are. Like, people tell you who they are up front, and believe them. Don't believe them. That's our problem. We don't believe them. And if we go forward believing them, I'm finding myself making changes so much quicker now than I used to. Right. And I feel better about that now. I'm not saying it doesn't suck. It absolutely does suck. But it's so much easier to just be like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. And I know that, like, for you, what you've experienced the last few years in particular, what I've witnessed, it's just like, there was a period of time where you were just outright shocked and you expected more out of the people. And then there was a period of time where, like, you weren't shocked, but you were just hurt that it was real, that you were even having to deal with it. And I think now, as you've come to terms with the safety element as to the people that you're not planning on having in your life or being around anymore, or for whatever
some boundaries
future.
we're going to
you're setting some boundaries. Like, you're still dealing with sort of the discomfort and the pain of what that experience is like. And for me, I'm just like, I can just cut so much easier. So I wish I could, like, take a chunk out of that and put it in you so that you don't have to suffer it. But
I have to feel this, right? It's important to go through the discomfort, right? Yeah. And this is they call it the quiet healing. I'm not very quiet right now. I'm talking, but honestly, the times I'm on this podcast or even talking to you is like the most I talk ever, because most of this now is me being very quiet, very been spending a lot of times learning and listening, which I think is it's not a bad place to be. I think that's perfectly acceptable. And then doing things, but then you don't have to get a response for doing something, or gratitude or a pat on the back or that gold star, right? Yeah, that type thing. So but I think because the other aspect that has changed things is as white supremacy works, right? As time goes on, the more you experience and realize how systems are working. And also, I'm getting older, which means I'm having more medical issues as of late. I'm having more issues that have caused me to be, and this is my ableism talking, like I'm uncomfortable saying that I'm disabled, but I'm having mobility issues.
Like you're having literal mobility issues, but you can't make that connection yet. You haven't gotten there yet.
One of the huge factors for me was with the what COVID has shown me. about America in particular, and the people, my people in America, is that how little we care.
Yeah.
To make change. I mean, you're not surprised, shocked at all, but it's that how little we care about making small. I'd wear a mask forever if that meant that I could keep someone safe.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But to them, it's like asking them to cut off their own fucking feet.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. And again, I also come mixed Japanese. I come from a culture of people who almost actively tries to make themselves smaller for the good of the population. And it's not in a way that entirely erases you as an individual, but it is about, doing the most good for the largest group. And if I have to be a little uncomfortable so that you can be more comfortable, that is a big part of the Japanese culture. And so mask wearing, and actually this spreads all throughout most of East Asia specifically, and parts of Southeast Asia as well. The wearing the mask part of culture has been in existence for a long time. And if you check their health stats, while they do still experience part of the pandemic as well, they have fewer deaths, like way less cases. The quarantine is usually really clean before they get themselves back out. Like they make sure that
they feed them. They deliver
feed them. They were delivering food to, like, this was happening in China. This was happening in Japan. This was happening in Korea.
We have so many Americans starving right now.
Yeah. And thank you for the little $2,800 that we got, once or twice, depending on who you were, 2 years ago.
And they let the child tax credit fail to go.
Yeah,
they didn't re-up that.
And
child poverty in the United States is skyrocketing again.
We put people into kind of collections if they can't pay for their lunch money. Little children, if they can't pay for their lunch money. You have neighborhood events trying to raise money to pay off the lunch debt of children in school. If my children are required by law to go to at least a public school, then why the fuck does that public school not make sure that the kid is fed if I'm not able to?
We used to have those.
Yeah, like it amazes me. It amazes me that we have. I mean, it again doesn't surprise me. I grew up with this, but it amazes me that we think that everything is such a violation, or why should I contribute to society to help somebody else when I come from culture that is literally about like the greater good.
And sorry to get on my high horse here, but they need to keep the same fucking energy, because I keep hearing everything. Well, what do they say? It's socially liberal,
fiscally conservative, socially liberal, which is fucking bullshit.
How can you socially look at somebody struggling and then fiscally saying I'm not going to pay for that when it keeps that same energy? Please explain it to me how it makes sense to you that Jeff Bezos makes $35 million an hour.
Yeah. And don't tell me it's because he works hard, because there is nobody I know that works in a quote unquote blue collar or manual labor and or retail or food industry that doesn't work fucking hard. It's just a different skill set. So, and I guarantee you Jeff Bezos does not work hard.
No. And even if he does work his fucking ass off, it's not $31 million a motherfucking hour.
Yeah, like
bleep
that is insane.
Out. Okay, and so why is it that people find that is acceptable, but somebody that can't pay for food, and they go, well, I'm not going to pay for your life choices. How? And they refuse to see, and that's the thing.
Systemic reason why, yeah.
And the thing is this, as someone from behind enemy lines, we do see it.
Sure, of course you do.
We do see it. We just go, it doesn't fucking affect us. It doesn't really hurt me. Therefore, I'm not going to give too much of a damn.
Yeah.
And what's really fucking sucks is because my culture is so fucked up that when it starts to affect us, I'm becoming more disabled. I have worked 3 jobs practically my entire life.
Yeah.
I have hustled since my early teens. Okay. So no one has the fucking right to tell me that I'm lazy.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to pay for things. Now I am in a better place than I have ever been.
Right.
Okay. But let's talk about one of the reasons why medically, the older we all get, the more medical help we are going to need.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled up a couple numbers for y'all on the internets for you. So now there's some numbers that I'm going to be throwing out at you, but I want to take a look at a study that was published in 2016 and then it was written about in 2017. So these numbers are prior to the pandemic, which is going to change a lot of different things because this was a massive unaliving event and a massive disabling event. Right? Okay. They're saying 35% of Americans who get COVID are going to experience long COVID. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which means you will have no ability to work or limited ability to work. So if you can't work, how do you pay rent? How do you pay for food? Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Yeah. So according to Medicare, okay, the average American in 2016, and this is the beginning of the study, in 2012, the average American, one American, was paying $9,596 to have access to medical care that year. That is your monthly fucking premiums plus your deductible only, not your co-insurance, not your copay, anything like that. Not at your out-of-pocket max, just that. And that's if you're lucky enough to have health insurance through your employer, right? Okay. So it was more than twice the per capita average of every other developed nation.
That's the thing. Like, the more we get into this, the more you see like this greatest nation fucking thing that we're in, how low we are in so many areas that we're supposed to be a world fucking example and we pay for.
And everyone's like, it's better in America.
The fuck it is.
The fuck it is. So here's the thing. So experts, now this is before the pandemic, experts quote, healthcare spending per person is expected to surpass $10,000 in 2016. And the march steadily higher, they're purporting that it's going to cost $15,000 because it was 14.9, okay, by 2023.
Yeah, I mean, even just now, like this is a small, very not problematic thing. I have a skin tag growing in my nose. It's growing so big that you can now see it if I tilt my head, or just if I'm not wearing a mask. I tried to go get this thing removed.
Yep.
I was told it was cosmetic, so I had to pay for it entirely out of pocket. So in addition to my specialist copay, which was $60, I would have to pay somewhere around $300 to get this thing removed because they viewed it as cosmetic. Yep. I was telling them it hurts, like it physically does hurt. And because it was growing, and it was going so fast, I can conceive of it getting to a point that it was going to block my nasal passage.
Right.
And they said, come back when it blocks your nasal passage, then it can be covered.
Or if it starts bleeding, or if it gets infected, or
any of that stuff. So I end up getting one of those freezing your wart off kits. And I've been doing that slowly to pull just little chunks of it off at a time because it's growing.
And it hurts.
And now I think I've frozen too much because now I actually have pain at the freeze site. So like I'm probably causing myself more damage.
You burnt it a little bit, so ease off.
And so now I'm just doing an oil to try to kill. But this is something I've been now dealing with for 4 months. And I'm talking about this is low impact, not that bad of a deal situation.
So
I have to go through hoops for that.
Right. And it's just for skin tag. So in comparison, I wanted to take a look at so if the annual cost per person is going to hit $10,000 by 2016, I use that number. And we go back to 1960s. In the 1960s, the average person paid $146 to have health care.
Is that in ratio to what we're paying now, or in their dollars?
I want to thank you so much for that question because when I adjust for inflation, that means in 2016 that the cost of medical for the same access is 9 times higher than it was in the 1960s. When the cost of living has gone up, but the pay has not.
Yeah.
So compare that to Mexico. Now, for those of you guys don't know, in Mexico has public health. So if you have an emergency, you can go to a public hospital, and get some help. Okay. And then there's some cost there. Like it might be $20 to go to the ER, American. Okay. But if you want to do private insurance, make sure you can see a doctor and see some specialists and so whatever. So I will let you know, for foreigners living in Mexico, the average cost per person is $5,900 a year. That is meaning like if you, and that's just for certain types of insurance coverage, whatever. So when I went and looked into it for 6 months for private insurance for me, for 6 months, currently right now, I can buy a plan for $400 for 6 months.
We're paying $1,600 a month for me and my partner through his work. Through his work. Yeah. We can't even afford to use the health insurance. And you're talking about $400 for the entire 6 months that we would have there, because you can go 6 months at a time.
Right. And that number that they're giving me was like people going and doing like that's full dental, that's, that's getting medication. So so if we compare it to what they're saying by next year, which is going to be $15,000 just to have access.
Yeah. Not even use it.
So yeah, that, so there's several companies that will give you guys quotes, and that you can get there and you can pay for out of pocket. Then you can go down there and you'll have an access card and something like that
and we can put some of those links in some of the things so that y'all can check that out.
So most U.S. citizens also purchase additional coverage in the U.S., right? But the premiums are way higher. However, if you exclude the U.S. coverage of your plan, you save approximately 50%. So that coverage right there was including the plan that gives you insurance back in America.
Wow, bro.
So the average price for a Canadian citizen would be $3,000 a year.
In Mexico, a Canadian citizen? Mm-hmm. That's so fucking wild. And this is like, we're talking about the medical aspects. This is not even talking about like other things, other benefits that you can have just in your day-to-day life that we don't have access to here, that you could both have there and be contributing to their society and also be giving people jobs. Like there's so many other aspects of this that of living in other places that I think we'll talk about, but it's just insane to think that right now, like I haven't been able to go to the dentist because I can't afford it. I can't afford to use the health insurance that we're required by law to pay for. And that we got the lowest plan possible, and it's $1,600 a month for both of us through my husband's work. Like that's with us not having anything so severe right now that we really need it. Although we both have knee problems that we aren't able to check out right now. Whereas you, like, your what you've been learning lately about your future, looking ahead into what mobility is going to be an issue for you. Like I feel like we need to get you out faster because we want to make sure that we get you out before the mobility stuff really
hits. But hard, I would like to get down there and help some. Like I have friends that pay, the cheapest that they pay is $1,000 to $1,200 a month just for their insulin.
Yeah. You were talking about that last time as well. Like, yeah, because we were doing checks about some of the basic medicines that we both use, and
everyone. It's just for I don't want you guys to be confused. It's not like there's different medicines in Mexico. Like, don't get me wrong. They might be different. They might have different access to certain drugs, but it's primarily the same. Like Pfizer, they have all that stuff down there. Okay, it's the same fucking medicine, except that in America, these companies are allowed to charge whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah. Whereas in the rest of the world, they have
laws
about it. Yeah,
that say you cannot gouge people like that because they need it to live.
Also, like, what's the move if you charge your people so much that they die off? Eventually you're it's
people desperate and keeps them in the system. It keeps you working hard and not putting your head up because you're too busy. You're too busy treading water so you don't drown.
Yeah, it's stuff like that.
They don't want us fighting.
It's stuff like that really makes it like, like for all the issues that I do feel that we might come across with like classism and things like that. Like I think the more we absorb ourselves into the whatever the local cultures that we're at, and however we try to contribute as outsiders, still understanding our outside space, like being able to just get care will be worth all the other effort it might take to have to live in a place that you might not have access to the language right away. I think, we'll get fluency over time. And so, ways in which that we can contribute to their society while also like literally just allowing ourselves to survive a little bit better than we're currently experiencing, I think is a big aspect of what I'm looking forward to this. So for me, before we start to wrap up a little bit, for me, I've just signed a 6-month lease on my current place with the expectation that I'm trying to get out of here by that point, by the end of the 6 months. And hopefully everything goes well and it's possible and stuff like that. But part of that also is holding out on some medical things that I need to take care of that aren't even near what you have to deal with. Yeah. Holding out until I get there so that I can take care of some of these problems that I have and hope that they don't get worse in that 6 months. And that's, again, small potatoes, I think, in comparison to what it is that you've got going on. And then just learning, like the learning process that you're going through right now for what you have going on, and then researching it here and researching it for there is probably a big
it's so funny because when it all started for me, it was researching other countries to go, America doesn't do it better. How can we do it better? And I don't know how to do it better. I mean, I have an education, but I don't know. So I'm going to go out and learn how are other places doing it, because there are other people that have cancer. There are people with diabetes everywhere in the world. Yeah. How does this work there? How does it work? How did the pandemic work in Japan with the lockdowns and feeding?
Yeah, because in 2020 they only had like 1,000 cases.
Right. We gave bailout money to major corporations and not to the people. And the thing is like, well, they provide jobs. The money they gave us, guys, was our fucking tax dollars.
Is our money back. Yeah, that's all it was. And also, at the end of the day, let's not forget, money is made up. All the stuff that we're paying for is made up. Like, we created all this shit. We used to, and for thousands of years, lived on the land. Yeah. And just survived long enough for the human race to get to the place that now we have nearly 8 billion people. So we did fine enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just to be generous, we'll say 200 years, because that's not what it's been, but just be generous, 200 years of, say, industrialization. Right. To some degree. We have entirely destroyed the planet. Mm-hmm. The even just, I saw a picture the other day of around Earth, like the trash that's around the planet that we'd have to cut through to get even to the moon, right, is so insane because of the stuff that we keep putting up there. We're destroying the space around our atmosphere, and then we're destroying our planet, and we've only done this in less than 200 years for shit that's all entirely made up. None of the stuff that we needed, we could have just existed.
All the lives that we killed because of the thing that we made up of race.
All of this kind of stuff is made up.
All the women that have suffered because of the stupid bullshit of patriarchy. Yeah. All of this stuff is made up, and we're all a part of this. Like,
this. We could literally just do shit.
I know,
and not have to pay for it. Like, that is a possibility.
Wasn't George Carlin, the stand-up comedian, who was like, you guys, the world's going to be fine. You guys think that, conserving plastic bags is going to save us from, guess what? At the end of the day, the world's going to be fine.
We're going to be gone. Yeah.
The world is going to shake us off like a bunch of fleas.
And it's deserved, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And we're going to heal, and it's going to heal and go about its age. And I don't know, maybe the next generations of different dinosaurs will be the
we'll just be an extinct species to the way that the dinosaurs were species as well. Unfortunately, we're taking a lot of animals with us, but that what's done is done. So I feel like there's so much about this stuff that is so ridiculous that the idea that I shouldn't have to pay tax dollars to pay support other people, when it's more of a drain on society to have them exist without support than it is to actually legitimately support other people.
Current times, we are now dealing with monkeypox, which monkeypox has, I believe, been around since the 1970s. monkeypox, I believe. Okay. And whenever it's happening in brown countries, right? Especially for us Americans, suffering in brown countries is acceptable to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We are dealing with monkeypox now in the United States because we refuse to help a bunch of people that we say are brown and didn't deserve our help. And case in point, for all you guys in there, you guys are talking shit a lot about America. America let 20 million doses of the monkeypox vaccine go bad, as opposed to giving it to the place that needed it the most. And this is what happens the rest of the world. If anybody would just learn about intersectionality, right? Which is, again, Sharmane knows this. I'm talking to the internets. Okay. Is that if you want to help yourself, you have to help the most vulnerable.
Yeah. Our survival is helping ourselves as in humanity, as in not just me as an individual.
If we had given the vaccine to these countries, we wouldn't be dealing with monkeypox here on our shores today.
Well, there's other stuff going on in there too. And
true. It's more nuance than that. I got that. But we let 20 million doses. That should not have happened. It's wasteful. And then it is the perfect analogy of America. We have something that can help.
COVID vaccines expire here rather than giving them to
somebody else
population
that needed us. Imagine what India could have done with our vaccines.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I assume that most of the people that will discover our show, outside of the people that we know that are listening to it, will probably already be on some of this mindset to follow us. But it's really about learning those aspects. Like, for the longest time, I had a different perspective. I was like, we should just enforce vaccines in some of these other countries, but now I know how much they're so wary of westernization and stuff like that,
of what we did there.
You completely understand why that is the case, but at the same time want it to be available to them, rather than let things expire just to protect them, versus just letting it sit on the shelf. And why is it okay to waste thousands of, I think probably millions of dollars worth of medication, rather than give it to people who can use it right away, just because we can't benefit off of it? That
can't make a profit.
That's the most American thing I think ever, is we would rather let something go to waste than be useful to others.
It's why we're not allowed to donate food. It's why they have laws where you're not allowed to donate your food. You have to throw it out.
People can get arrested if you feed here in Houston, where I currently live. There is a rule: you're not allowed to feed the homeless.
Nope.
They can panhandle for money, but you're not allowed to feed them. And if you get caught feeding them, you will get a ticket. You will get a ticket, and that is insane. Also, the fact that churches don't feed the homeless or house the homeless, there are reverends and pastors and priests and stuff like that drive super nice cars, all that kind of stuff that I have a problem with.
Look, I can't even hand out bottled water for people waiting to line to vote.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing you were getting hit on. But I don't want it to get too.
But what we're talking about, when are we doing this, or why? I think it is, even though we love talking in this aspect, we're tired of talking about the fantasy,
the fantasy and the deaf ears aspect on it. We have been in different ways. We've been activists and or elevators and or legitimately just facilitators of other people's, trying to help other people do either voting or, get to the hospital or whatever. We
get insurance or get access
all
to
this kind of
get
stuff.
a ride. Yeah.
We separately have done different versions of this, and it is helpful this much. And it's still good that we have done what we have done, but we need more people to buy in. And the people that we love and trust the most are telling us, no, that's somebody else's problem. If my choice is to stay here and can keep fighting a system that is fighting against me, with people that are supposed loved ones that are also fighting against me, I would much rather continue my fight with strangers. You know what I'm saying? I would rather go somewhere else.
To a T. That is where I am at right now. I don't, when it comes to anybody that is my family or friends prior to this year, if you're not currently talking to me right now, there's a particular reason why.
Yeah.
Because I have done everything on my own for I don't know how long. I have been there for everyone. And I do fight with the fact that, and I know sometimes a little bit you too, like we fight with that whole guilt thing of like, well, you know, it's not about tit for tat, right? But at the same time, I've been diminishing myself. Tit. There has to be some tit. I mean, come on, why be queer if I don't get any tit? No, it's that if there's I can fight another way. I don't, because the way I was doing it, though I know I've made impact. I know I have. Okay. I know there are people that are in better, and I know, and I don't feel guilty about any of that or whatever. If I don't take time for myself, how can I?
Yeah. And you can't keep fighting if you don't rest. But also, like, why fight if we can't even enjoy any aspect of what we're fighting for too? You know, like, why do we have to be up all the time? I think that is something that we our examples for people that have made big change tend to be people who've literally sacrificed their lives for change. In our smaller scales, because we're really just trying to do it within our own individual smaller communities or our own families or whatever, you know, like, we're not necessarily sacrificing our life, but we are, in a sense, if we're not allowing ourselves to actually live the life that we're working so hard to preserve, right? And our culture has told us to work until you die. And I don't want to do that. I mean, it took me years to figure out that it was okay to not want to do that.
Right. And it's okay for me to hand the anxiety back.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, if you want access to me as a loved one, here are some of the things that I come with. These are the boundaries that I come with. These are the requirements that I come with. And I'm not saying that I'm more special than any other person on the planet. No. I'm saying that I can no longer expel my energy towards somebody who's either voting in a way that actively disenfranchises me or puts me at literal risk for health reasons or imprisonment or safety or death, you know, whatever. I'm no longer available to someone that will do that. I'm no longer available to let a person tell me that they support me, but why they're not going to be doing the work. And this whole, like, hate the war but support the troops thing about, you know, us as individual people, as queer people, like, you know, I'm not gay, so I can't, you know, I love you and I hope that everything works out for you, but because it doesn't affect me, I'm just no longer available for that. No. So it's not an ultimatum in the way that we think of ultimatums as bad things. It is a boundary. It's a boundary. Have me in your life, that means you also consider my life as valuable enough to try to protect in the way that I do for you and
everyone else. Yes.
Yeah. It's not tit for tat, but it's just like basic human decency, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. And if I can't even get that out of my own loved ones, then I'm not under any obligation to stay here and suffer alongside of them when I could go somewhere else, get a little bit of more enjoyment in my own personal life, and also affect change in a place that may benefit from it, but also willing to work hand in hand to do, you know, for that kind of stuff. And that's more what I want to do. In addition to that, I think I just feel like I've worked hard enough in a system that I cannot change because I'm part of what they're trying to oppress. If I to affect more change for me as a brown queer femme, the amount of mingling I have to do with people who don't look like me, who don't share my experiences, the amount of effort and energy I have to expel to get them to change so that they can help me and the people who look like me.
Yeah.
I've already been doing that for 40 years. You know, like
since out of the chute.
And it's gotten way worse. You know, it's like it's only worse. And so I realized that at some point I have to decide, like, let me have a little bit of life for myself as well, and maybe find a place that my efforts can be more useful as long as I'm listening to the people that are in those environments. Because right now I'm the person people need to listen to because I'm from that those oppressed groups.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If I can, I mean, it's almost like using your celebrity, right? Like if you're a celebrity person, you use your clout for an event. Like if I go someplace else where I can use my American status, which just make me real cringy even saying this right now, but if I can utilize my American status as a way to benefit the population of the people that I'm going to be around,
yeah,
I would rather do that there than be an oppressed person here trying to convince a non-oppressed person to stop oppressing me.
Right.
You know?
Do you mind taking the boot off my throat?
You know, yeah, it's like I'm just done with it. And again, I guess I don't even feel like I need to explain it, and yet I've decided to do a podcast where we're explaining it.
Well, I mean, I think I'm hoping that the people that find us are on their own journey of figuring something out. Maybe they don't want to leave, but they would like to like have a breather someplace else. Or what I was hoping for is to learn about maybe how we could come up with a way of having an organization where we could help. Because again, $400 for 6 months worth of access to healthcare to me is a steal. I know to someone who lives off of $1,200 a month because they're disabled, they can't do that. So is there a way that by
we can facilitate something
we can facilitate by working with the locals down there, and that they have their own little casitas and things? Is there a way that they can help facilitate having people with disabilities or medical issues and or medical issues coming down there to get access to care while on a vacation?
Yeah. I used to work for a medical tourism company, and so a lot of what we did had mostly to do with dental and plastic surgery. I guess plastic surgery is a really big part of the medical tourism industry, especially in Mexico and especially in like Colombia and Korea. And some of the stuff that I learned while doing, and I was only there as a contractor for a couple of months, but what I learned about there is like the entire way that they care, and we'll get into medical tourism in future episodes too, but the entire way that they care. You can do your entire travel, convalescence, and long-term convalescence, and the actual treatment itself for so much less that it legitimately is like you've saved up for a vacation. Like you can do it under your vacation budget, not like I need this medical budget and a vacation, but like in most cases you can do like a 2. And again, this is a privilege even to be able to get there. But like, let's say you only have $2,000 to be able to go and do some sort of medical treatment somewhere. You can get there, convalesce long-term, and get the procedure and come back home within that thing. Like that is possible in other places. And the way that medical, a lot of medical professionals that we worked with anyway, most of them were trained either in the United States or like Switzerland, but they, they're from whatever countries that they're from, and so their medical licensing or their medical education and training
is high
for like a Westerner who believes like I can only have medical care from an American doctor or something like that. Their training is the same. They just happen to come from a different country.
Well, and the reason why they're doing this in Mexico or something is they don't have to pay the insurance like they do here. And what I mean by that, guys, is the malpractice insurance is an ungodly amount of money.
So how do they handle well, we'll get into that on another episode.
They do, but again, it's subsidized.
Subsidized. I see.
Because honestly speaking, if we want to go that and we want to make the podcast go in another direction, I would say, like the police, for example, should pay for their own insurance.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know.
Oh, but we also have
another podcast,
American situation with our police. So yeah, like I think you do need to tap their pensions to get them to stop killing Black people. But we'll talk about that on another episode.
And that's another episode.
So we did go a little bit longer than usual, but that's because we meandered in the beginning, which is naturally going to happen because we're friends and we're going to talk about shit. But let's see. Don't forget to follow. So a lot of stuff has changed in the week the 2 weeks since we aired our last episode. Our website is done. And you can go to Queer Far Podcast or queerfarpod.com. I think they both link back. But when you see it, it's also a Wix site. So it'll say Wix site once you get there. To check out our website. And on there, you will see the most recent videos of the episodes that we drop, in addition to being able to click on the audio episodes of it. And that is going to be where we are going to also put our resources tab. So anything that we end up covering in different episodes, we'll eventually put up the resources associated with those things. And right now, show is more conversational because we're getting, our legs under us and everything like that. But once we actually start having more, topic-based episodes where research is behind it, we're going to be able to put those resources up on the website. We also have a blog on that site that has the transcripts of every episode. So as one of the efforts in terms of, fighting against our own ableism, whether or not we're aware of it or not, is accessibility. And transcripts is one way that can be very helpful to some folks. So if you want to access Queer and Far podcast, you can do that by going to YouTube and watching our video, listening to us on whatever your favorite podcatcher is, or reading our transcripts on our website, which is queerfarpodcast.com. I'm really excited about that. It does take some work to get it, going and flowing and stuff like that. But I think it's important to be able to have that kind of access. And then in addition to that, once we start getting those resources up, we can really be beneficial to other people. So I'm proud of us for that.
I'm proud of us too. Oh, before you go, you want to see the one thing that I know
what's the one thing we were talking about? I forgot that we were talking about doing this.
So I was like, this is the one thing I know that's going to be going into my luggage because I know I'm going to need it.
That's a big ass cup, bro.
And it's like keeps everything like super frozen for over 24 hours.
Well, whatever company that is, go to their website, see if they have an affiliate marketing thing so that we can try to get an affiliate deal with them.
Okay.
I can't see it. It's all blurry.
Reduce.
Okay.
What an odd name for a very large cup.
One thing that is coming with me because I need it.
What? Oh, but see, that makes complete sense though.
My Deadpool unicorn, because I need him with me at all times. That's funny. Don't forget to follow us on the social medias. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the Tickety Talks Queer Far Pod at Queer Far Pod. I've only put one. I've only put like our trailer thing up or something like that on the Tickety Talk so far. I'm gonna be traveling. So here, let's see. When this
I'm gonna be trying to making some stuff.
You're gonna make some videos.
But I was trying to figure out how to get something from our Google thing, and I'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll get there. I'm gonna be traveling, so by the time this airs, I will be already on the road. I will be going to Oklahoma City, Dallas, Anaheim, and Atlanta all over the course of a 3.5 week period. I will be going to conventions and just traveling to see folks too. So I will do my best in a timely manner to drop those videos, but if not, they'll just be videos that we end up talking about. So the next time you hear from us, we will be reviewing, I guess, whatever amount of those trips I have done.
Sounds good.
In between that time. But so I think our episodes, we are bi-weekly, so our episodes will kind of bounce between traveling episodes and discussion episodes about being an expat. So right now, you and I are really in it on the planning for the expat thing. So that's like the most important aspect of what we're trying to get done. But then also because of podcasting, I am traveling quite a bit. So we'll lace it in between there. We also have some interviews that are going to be coming down the pipe. I have a few things lined up with some folks that are currently living in places like Merida and possibly a person who used to live in Mexico City and wants to go back. So we'll get some episodes of people who are actually doing the thing that we're talking about doing. And then you also have some folks that you've been talking to about disability and traveling.
Yes, I would like to
as well.
I've reached out to them and I'm hoping we can do something soon.
Yeah. So again, we're bi-weekly for now until we get closer to, until we're actually probably in our next location together and make it a little bit easier for us to do that. So stick with us. Follow, subscribe, rate, and review because it'll help other people find us. And if you have any ideas of things that you would like us to cover, don't forget to hit us slide into the DMs or send us an email at queerfarpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right.
Let's go.
And like we started to say, some videos that y'all ain't seen yet, but our little tag is we are waxed.
We are waxed.
Fully packed. So let's go.
Bye, friends.
Bye, friends. Queer and Far is a Main Hustle Media podcast, produced and edited by Sharmane Fury. Co-hosted by Sharmane Fury, aka daBlasianBlerd, and Shae Nahnigans. Music is Big Band Savage Jazz by Pine Groove. If you like what you've heard on Queer and Far, please subscribe, rate, and review on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Main Hustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.